Nicolas Cage won his first and only Oscar for Leaving Las Vegas, a performance so raw it's almost unbearable. This isn't just a love story, it's a man drinking himself to death, and the woman who loves him anyway. Join us as we discuss if Ben Sanderson is Cage's greatest role or just his most tragic. We are on film 2 here on Foreplay of our Nicolas Cage arc. This will be going back in time from our first movie, The Rock, to Leaving Las Vegas, the film for which he won the Academy Award for Best Actor. And a lot of people will say, Nicolas Cage, not really a great actor. I think you will change your mind if you have seen this film. And also, our next film is going to be 8mm, and we will end the arc with Adaptation. So those will be the next two ones. But today, we are just here for Leaving Las Vegas. I know at the start of the arc, we said that we were kind of going in order of accessibility. And some people may think that this dark material of this film makes it inaccessible. But that is not true, especially if you watch the rest of the films in this arc. You will perhaps understand these things a little bit better. This is actually a very accessible film. It just happens to be brutally depressing.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, listen, there is there's a lot to this film. I mean, I've seen this movie maybe 50, 60, 70 times. I couldn't even tell you. It might even be close to 100. I've watched this movie obsessively over and over and over and over again, and quite literally watched it last night, hopefully with a set of fresh eyes. I've watched Leaving Las Vegas so many times because I think how you're feeling when you come to it really changes the tenor and the tone of the movie. This is a great movie. If you're feeling fucking depressed and you need to wallow in self-pity and misery, here it is. It is that, the film. If you are wanting to kind of get a look at the seedy underbelly of one of the most exciting cities and interesting cities in America, it serves that up too perfectly. If you are wanting to know how sex work is portrayed in the also politically correct 90s, spoiler, it not politically correct whatsoever, it can do that. If you want to watch Nick Cage's arguably his career best turn, many people think that. I actually don't. I think he has done better performances than this, but I think it's certainly top 5, maybe top 3. It's fantastic. So it's got a little bit of. There are many reasons to come and watch this movie, but I'm not ashamed to say it. This is one of the movies where I've essentially lived this life. I identify with the main character in a way that's like at times horrifying and in better times amusing, because this is so, in this movie, Nick Cage, I'll do the summary for this one. By the way, spoiler, Richard Lewis is in this movie, the famous now dead Richard Lewis from Curb Your Enthusiasm stand-up. He's in this
the opening
movie.
scene.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, so just to give you the summary of the movie, Nick Cage is a screenwriter. He's also an alcoholic. You're not sure whether it's his alcoholism that has driven away his family and friends. You don't know. Did he lose his wife first, and that started the alcoholism? He even ruminates on that at one point in the film. Anyway, because he can no longer perform his duties as a screenwriter because of his crippling alcoholism, they essentially give him a giant severance check, but one that moves him to tears with its generosity. And by the way, this movie immediately sets the tone right from the off. This is all pre-titles, by the way. So the scene where he gets the check in and of itself is heartbreaking.
This is too generous, Bill.
Well, Ben, we really liked having you around. But you know how it is.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, he then says, I think I'm going to go to Vegas. Cue titles, and you realize immediately from the tone of the titles, this is not a happy Vegas romp. This isn't, the Rat Pack Vegas. This is, this is where you go when things are bad, right? This is where you go to kind of,
And some would say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
and
Very much so.
there is some sort of gallows humor about it, which I'll kind of get to a little bit later on if you just know about living in Vegas like I did. I lived in Vegas for 2 years. Anyway, so while he's there, he befriends a prostitute called Sera. The name is also relevant, and she herself is in problems with her pimp. He's a Latvian pimp on the run for the Russian mob. He is trying to raise money to placate them, and therefore he is horrifyingly abusive to her. And yet she meets this, essentially a lush, a mark, somebody she could milk for money because he's so lonely. He's leaving it all on the table, quite literally. He's going to drink himself to death, and basically he will pay money for her company and her time, but he won't degrade her. There is a broken, bruised tenderness to his character in this movie. He just wants the company while he checks out.
Just stay. That's what I want. I want you to talk or listen. Just stay.
The way that the alcoholism,
There's unironically almost like a classier, my pretty lady fucking angle going on in this film, isn't there?
Yeah,
the hooker with the heart of gold, all the classic tropes.
and she realizes very quickly that no, I'm not going to treat this guy like a mark. She could milk him and disappear. She doesn't. She has a genuine tenderness and affection for him. They have some quite touching moments. But the only thing he says is, "We can do this until I die, but you must never ask that I stop drinking." And in exchange for that, I will never criticize what you do for a living.
You can never ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
And so they go, okay, the rules have been established for a good relationship. And then, unfortunately, the rest of the movie is what you think it's going to be. Well, no, you probably don't think it's going to be what it is, actually. You
think it's probably going to have a happy ending.
Yeah, you probably think she's going to turn it
well,
around.
the funny thing is, it is a love story.
Yeah.
It's just, again, a cripplingly depressing love story.
And listen, she doesn't turn it around for him. The final scene, I believe, is there. He's at the point of no return. He's getting hepatic failure, and she's having sex with him, telling him how great he is as he essentially slips out of the mortal coil. He dies shortly after, and that's it.
By the way, wouldn't this movie fucking suck if it did have a happy ending and a redemption?
Oh, it'd be
I
terrible.
actually think one of the best things about this film from the very beginning, by the way, is the film is both. Well, here's what's brilliant about this film. It reminds me in a weird way of what a lot of those like Scorsese films that glamorize drugs do, which is that on the one hand, like Richard says, if you want to come into it with a fucking bottle of vodka and your sorrows and go fuck it, and you want to be living like in the movie, you can do that. But also, it also has built into it all the cautionary aspects of this sort of like self-destruction, including the first half of the film is basically the idea that actually this isn't the fucking 2010s, motherfucker, where everyone tells you to go to therapy or rehab. This is where everyone gets awkward because they used to really like you, as he says, Richard, when he gives him the massive severance. And the severance almost is just go away and get into a fucking bottle and fuck off. Like, we used to like you, but this is just awkward now. And no one's going to go, we need an intervention, we're really worried about you, go to fucking... No, it's like, just fuck off. Like, that, because there's a problem. Who wants to address with someone they previously liked or respected addiction? And who wants to get in, as this woman finds out, when he's even in love with her? Mate, that's another thing that people will never understand. I agree with you, Richard. It's not as simple as, oh, something bad happened in my life, therefore drugs/addiction. The two are intertwined. You can't even tell where one begins and one ends.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, as is made clear by both of their rules, by the way, as you say, Richard, it's not just him going, you can't ask me to stop drinking. Her whole shit is sort of like, it's why constantly one of the jarring things in the film is like, he'll do something romantic and she'll be like, right, I'm just about to go suck 10 guys' dicks now, but anyway, see you. And it's all like, I'm going to pretend that doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, even this aspect of the idea that you could be, I hope people understand this could even be a metaphor for abusive relationships too, as you can see with her. You can simultaneously love someone who is also self-destructive and destructive to you in the relationship. Those aren't in any way mutually exclusive components.
I'll make this movie even sadder for you, Duncan. Right? Like, if you believe it's possible. It's based on a novel, and it was by it's an obviously semi-autobiographical novel by a guy called John O'Brien. It was his debut novel. He'd worked kind of writing scripts and what have you before, I think mostly for TV shows. and he wrote this leaving Las Vegas. Like, it was about his own experiences out there. And anyway, when he sold the rights to the movie in 1994, he shot himself. He just killed himself. He just like, fuck it, I don't want to see how this story ends. He kind of was like tortured about the idea that maybe, you know, it would debase his art or whatever, that he took the big check for it. And yeah, he just fucking blew his brains out. He was 33. He wasn't even an old hack or anything like that. He was still essentially a young man. And so he never got to see the movie come out. It comes out in 95. And so it is imbued with this real, authentic sadness. And I think one of the reasons why Nicolas Cage is doing some of his best work here is probably because of that. Like, you're not just doing a film that's like Oscar bait. Probably someone will accuse it of that. You are honoring someone's memory, someone's very real life and tortured experience. That
even does come across. As I say, there's so many aspects. I've never been an alcoholic, but I've had addictions. Yeah. Like, I would say that there's a lot of this really rings really true as well. Sure. It's not just like performative. I mean, this does have like a Bukowski fucking, I don't know, Hubert Selby Jr. vibe. Like, yeah, it's a downer, but it's a very fucking realistic portrayal of a downer too.
Yeah. And look, I think it could be easy to look away from something like this. Because it's the way it's shot, they filmed it using the 16mm cameras, and they did shoot a lot of this in real casinos. I mean, there was almost like, I don't want to say, you know, it's Mike Figgis we're talking about, so I don't want to say like, you know, a guerrilla style shooting.
Just make Vegas look cool, or just like you want it to be all the lights and shit. It looks awesome.
But like Nick Cage even said himself in the interviews, because we were using these smaller cameras, it never felt like I was in a movie. I was just this guy. Because, you know, you don't have the big setup. It's just, you know, it's those things. And so it would be easy to look away from something this sad, because ultimately, by the way, nothing is resolved. I mean, like, he dies. Oh. She presumably is kind of still in the situation she's in. They don't run away together. They don't fall in love, even though they obviously have this incredible depth of feeling. Vegas remains completely unchanged and almost none the wiser that these two people ever existed. And the world just keeps turning. And it would be easy to look away from a movie that's that bleak in its outlook. But ultimately, the two lead performances, and by the way, there is not a big supporting cast in this one, really. No. You know, it is.
I mean, they get rid of fucking Julian Sands pretty quick, actually. I forgot how quick that is.
You know, it's just Nicolas Cage and Elisabeth Shue and their broken relationship and almost whimsical subtext about what could have been if their lives were just a little bit different.
I even forgot from this movie. I remember all the Nick Cage part. That part was very vivid. It was how I remembered it. I really forgot how much, like, this movie is like a two-person act. She is on her own self-destructive fucking bender too, just on some weird, like, cope sexuality thing of like, I like this, I'm happy doing this, and then literally being, like, essentially raped by her fucking pimp, who, by the way, it's even implied, she's conditioned. Like, she just offers herself up to him the second he puts a knife to her. She puts that knife towards him. Like, there's so much subtext there. It's fucking crazy, mate. And then also, as you say, in a weird way, she becomes the enabler of this guy. Like, she, as much as she's having her moments, she wants him to get help, she's also then the enabler completely. And then at the end, what's resolved for her? Like, it's not like she has an awesome time when he's gone. You can imagine if they made a sequel, it'd be her killing herself after this, mate.
But she enables him because he's the only kind of man that she can have a relationship with, right? The purpose behind her enabling his alcoholism is to care for him, and because he is not a violent drunk, and he doesn't actually have sex with her until the very end of the movie, right? Mm-hmm. So he is very much it's
implied he can't get up or something, can't perform.
Yeah. But he also doesn't want it. Like, the opportunities he has, he just doesn't take it, and you know, he professes, at least verbally, interest in other women. But if you are her and you have a desire to have a real romantic relationship, who is going to have that with you? And the answer is only him. And the only reason he is capable of doing that is because of the condition that he's in with his own addiction. So the weird part is that they are actually both fulfilling a need for each other, but it is enabled by their deficiencies. Yeah. And there is something beautiful about that. There is something beautiful about this relationship, but it is predicated that she enables him.
Yeah, I mean, look, and so, man, this is like a heavy start to the episode, but there is something about when people are addicts, there is this aspect of at what point does it become appropriate for you as a friend? I'm not talking about a family member. I'm not talking about a spouse. I'm talking about as a friend. At what moment does it become appropriate for you to essentially intervene and show them tough love? It'd be a very, very complex issue to negotiate. Again, I've got insight on this. I've known many addicts down the years, and I've been an alcoholic, and easily to the point of suffering physical withdrawal if I don't stop drinking, and been to some very dark places at various stages in my life. Some of it in public, some of it private. The problem you've got with this is one of the things that makes addicts spiral is a lack of a support network, and the thought that they are in some way disgusting and broken and diseased, and they stain and smear all the people around in their lives. So if you come to them and go, look, you've got to stop this, or I can't be in your life anymore, as some sort of gambit to make them not want to drink or not want to do drugs, then the problem with that is very often that's going to make them spiral, and they will call that bluff. And 99 times out of 100, the addiction has its hooks so deep in you when presented with, well, this is somebody they obviously don't care about me, or they wouldn't threaten to withdraw their friendship from me. So fine, fuck you, I don't need you. But it's going to make that next binge 10 times harder because of the genuine sorrow that you feel in your soul for having lost yet another person, for having failed yet another person through what is in your internal monologue, your weakness.
By the way, I've got a question for you, Richard. So one thing, just from, because obviously we have known each other and worked together for many, many years. So we've been in a lot of scenarios where we've had conversations like this, both at work and in terms of like in bars and stuff, including literally in Vegas when you lived in Las Vegas. And if people don't know, you can choose how much to say. Yeah. But essentially, I knew immediately we were going to talk about this in this movie, because there's even a scene where he literally burns his fucking passport. Essentially, you have had times where, at minimum, you have had the ideation, maybe I will quite literally cash out, cross the Rubicon, burn my passport, get rid of it all, and just go somewhere and do something similar to this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, so first of all, just as a person, I am definitely, so first of all, there's only two ways I do die. I've already made this pact with myself. If I ever get a terminal illness, I'm never telling anyone. I'm Norm MacDonalding it to the end. If it's that type of illness that isn't going to be debilitating publicly, and I'm a bit off and I don't seem to be as energetic or whatever, then I'll do it like that. But also, if I ever hit an impasse in my life where it feels like my options are super limited in what I can and can't do anymore, if I'm staring into a financial abyss I can't climb out of, or if I feel really separate from all the people that I care about for whatever reason, either they've moved on or it's geographical or whatever it might be, 100% killing myself. Like, I mean, I think I don't find it some sort of like sad, dark, seamy thing. I
mean, you unironically do think that's
empowering.
Like, you kind of vibe with Hunter S. Thompson, one of your heroes, doing it like that, right? You're not one of those people who goes, what a shame. You're like, to you, that's like a fitting way to go out.
I mean,
right?
so to talk about Thompson, and Thompson is a interesting cat when it comes to the whole suicide angle, because I think he just wanted to be Hemingway, and he chose a gun to the head like that. I almost think there's an almost contrived element in his own suicide. But I will say I totally identify with what was the precursor that prompted him to do it. He'd had loads of problems with his back. He had back surgery, and he went to, obviously he was, by this point in his life, he was a bit of a parody, and he was a friend to everyone in Hollywood because of the movie that got made. He started hanging out with, obviously, Johnny Depp, Depp has essentially become the keeper of the fucking flame to Hunter's memory more than his own kid, which is fucking crazy, Juan. But also, he was hanging out with Sean Penn, I think like Tim Robbins, people like this. But he went to one of these Hollywood gatherings, and it was up in like some penthouse, and the elevator was out. And so he was in a wheelchair at this point because of his back surgery, and he couldn't get up. And he said people were coming down to like meet him, shake his hands, have 5-minute conversation, but every time, without fail, they all fucked off back to the party. And he realized in that moment he definitely lost some of his allure, and the fact that physically he couldn't be up there doing what he used to do, this just made him think, right, okay. He went and wrote the fucking suicide note that everyone quotes, no more ball games, and then he fucking shot himself in the head with his family present. Now, you can either think there's a really tragic and, you know, like really awful aspect to that, and sure, you know, a man took his own life, but you can also say that, like, sometimes you're just out of shit, you're just out of juice, and, you know, what's the point?
Going to be an interesting episode to get some answers into this one, Monty. So good luck with that.
Yeah. You know, sometimes you're just out of juice, and I believe when you're out of shit, and you know within yourself you're out of shit, I don't consider it sad or pathetic or degrading to commit suicide. I think sometimes you can just tie it off. You know, you're here once, you live, and if life ever becomes unenjoyable, it's why, listen, on a broader context, politically, I think it's a moral evil to deny people the right to euthanize themselves if they don't want to go on with some horrifying illness like a locked-in syndrome or something, and they can consent to it and they're aware. I think it's ridiculous to do that. Yeah, I'm not saying you do it in every instance. Don't go full Canadian on it. But I think people have a right to choose the method by which they die. And preparing for that is certainly a lot nicer and for everyone involved than like just a profound spur of the moment suicide. But to get to your point, you know, I went through a lot. Like I realized, like afterwards, having had some like therapy and like talking to people about it, you know, I was going through PTSD, you know, dealing with the death of a friend, but also like finding that person and having to go through all of that. I didn't think I was going to make it through, if I was honest with you. I really thought it would be the end of me. I initially, and I was living in Vegas.
And let's be real, you were in a different headspace in terms of your work.
Yeah.
At the time, maybe you focused more on the ankle biters and all the dickhead people out there who were blocking you, the industry. You weren't maybe in, I think you kind of carved out a cleaner space for yourself in the industry now. Back then, you were maybe in a darker place.
I was. I mean, because ultimately I was looking at what is in it. Again, it's giga cringe to describe your esports output as your life's work, but for good or ill,
no, it
that's
is.
what it is. Yeah.
People think I had to come to this conclusion when I realised that whole thing that they were doing, like Lifetime Achievement Awards. I was like, wait a minute, my entire adult life was in esports. It was 20 plus years. Like, you think of it, you always think you just did a few years in. Like, bro, that's like, you're not that far from the golden watch in some industries there. Yeah, it's a real thing.
Exactly. And, you know, so I was having a hard time coming to the realisation that ultimately, you know, I might have wasted a lot of talent. You know, I never wrote a great novel. I never did this. I never did that. I never broke a big political story or used any of my journalistic talents to do anything good. Everyone in the industry at this moment in time, you know, because we're talking 2019, everyone in the industry by this point kind of felt was kind of done with me. And I was like, I was very isolated, which was bizarre because I was living in a big mansion in Vegas with friends in the house. And obviously loads of people wanted to come and visit because I lived in Vegas in a big mansion. People wanted to come and hang out and, you know, let's go to the Strip and
have the authentic experience. Exactly.
So I had a ton of people coming to visit. Plus I also had, you know, I don't want to say fuck you money, but $250,000 a year salary in to be fucking sniffed at. I had access to things in Vegas. I could get the keys to fucking, you know, rooftop bars in certain hotels just through the esports connection. It could have been a great time. Instead it turned into being this, like, it was rock bottom for me. It was rock bottom. I lost everything in the space of like 30 days. You know, it was like I went from, you know, losing my best friend, then I lost a job because COVID was coming in. That was a very isolating experience, as I'm sure it was for everybody. And then I had to, because I didn't have the job, I had to get out the country. So I lost my home, my friend, who I, you know, cared about immensely. You know, I went through all of that, and down the road in Vegas, there I can jump off a fucking building. I can go up to one of them rooftop bars, have a wicked party with total strangers, throw myself off. I can go to a gun range and blow my head off. You know, and all of this was explored in earnest. I mean, you have to understand it was like really, really tough. And obviously, there's something romantic about Las Vegas. Working class British kid, I was in love with this city. I always wanted to go and see it. I couldn't even imagine I could live there one day and see the Strip every day, to the point where the Strip became mundane. You know, friends would be coming through. I've never been to Vegas. My first time in Vegas. Where should I go? And I'm like, oh, well, I'll take you to the Bellagio. You see the fountains. You know, I'm just doing the same fucking thing I've done a million times before. So anyway, to tie this to the movie, obviously I'd already seen the film before I got into the headspace where I was a suicidal drunk living in Vegas. So you can imagine the simpatico I feel, you know, watching this movie now. Now, the good news is, as I said, I feel like I'm talking about Hillary Clinton here. I am not suicidal. I am not depressed. I'm in a very good headspace. I've reconciled a lot of my demons, and
you have no evidence on anyone except people in sports.
yeah, exactly. I also, forgiven myself for a lot of mistakes and displays of anger, and also, just forgiven myself for not being a good friend to myself. And I've got, like I said, I've got to a place where I'm totally self-actualized and at peace with all the aspects of my life, all the aspects of my to-be death, and my time as a fully three-dimensional existent being in this plane of reality. I'm like very zen about it and meditative about it all these days. But that none of which is to say, if ever there is a movie that for me authentically captured the experience of where I was, it's this. I'm always fascinated, actually, by the movie as to how good a job it did at portraying this complete despair. And that's what I felt, like an abject emptiness. That like this was it now. There could never be anything good in my life ever again. I couldn't do the work to the level that I used to do. I'd done all my best work. It was all behind me. There was no future now. The people I wanted to share a future with were no longer here. So me and Nick Cage's character in this, like, again, we'll get to the jokes. Sorry, guys, monologuing about suicidal ideation, probably not what you wanted to do for a fucking, let's put on the next episode of Foreplay. I love this. Probably not what you wanted to hear, but like, this is why.
But it shows what a contrast with Nick Cage movies this is, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I do feel a genuine kinship and affinity for this film, for all of the above.
By the way, I want to actually throw in something as well contextually that sadly, I think the younger audience watching the show or discovering this food for the first time will never be able to appreciate, which is if you were a boy of a similar age to us, then Elisabeth Shue in this movie, she was the love interest in The Karate Kid, super wholesome. She was the fucking, in the sequel to Back to the Future, where she replaced the woman who was only in it for 5 minutes in the first one. She is the fucking love interest in Marty McFly. Like, this is like a wholesome girl next door figure, and then she is playing a fucking literal Las Vegas prostitute who is at the behest of a fucking Latvian pimp and essentially gets locked into some fucked up spiraling relationship. I even think there's an aspect I missed the first time I watched this years ago, which is when basically he makes her agree, you will never ask me to stop drinking. She says, I do, like some sort of a fucked up wedding vow almost, and then they become this weird like open relationship couple. And the joke of, as you said earlier, was even though they each promise you're never allowed to take my vice away from me, it clearly is actually really hurting both of them, because both she herself is hating it when he has the prostitute himself he brings back home, but then he is doing that thing where every time he tries to cope with the fucking smiling mask but crying behind it meme of like, hey, here's some earrings, wear those while everyone pipes you down tonight, love. Like, fucking hell, this is that. Every moment it like starts to like take a breath above air, it just goes deeper down after that, mate. There never is a light at the end of the tunnel, mate. Or if it is, it's the train that's going to kill you at the end of the film. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just to talk about Elisabeth Shue for a little bit and start getting into actually breaking the movie down. She was nominated for Best Actress that year, but
she killed it.
But I mean, I'm amazed she didn't actually get it. If you look at the field, she lost it to Susan Sarandon in Dead Man Walking. There was only two people that year that should have been in contention, and it was Elisabeth Shue and Sharon Stone in Casino. Both of them got nominated. I don't know how you don't pick either of them. I've seen Dead Man Walking. Dead Man Walking.
Also both Vegas movies.
Yeah, exactly. And both actresses that themselves, as you said, been in very different types of film. Like Sharon Stone, she kills it in Casino. That might be her career best turn, honestly.
I think so.
And Elisabeth Shue, I think this definitely cemented her as having a bit more depth and complexity to what you're talking about. Because this is the other one. This is the other wholesome. This is where I know her from, mate. Adventures in Babysitting. I fucking love that film, and I loved her in that
classic.
film.
Classic.
That's easily one of my first crushes I ever had. As a kid. So I mean, listen. For her to rock up and do a performance like this in 95 is fucking crazy. It is such a brave career choice. And it's like, occasionally actors will do this. They will pick a role where it's like, you ask yourself, what's the upside? What's the upside of?
Oh, and by the way,
playing
Richard,
a
as I
Vegas
referenced
prostitute,
earlier,
you know?
this isn't Julia Roberts going, I'm actually like the cool prostitute. You know? No, this is really dark, bro. Like, as I say,
It's
she's
also
like
it's
sort
also
of a
just an
fucking beaten woman
extremely
in this
difficult
movie.
role.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like you can fuck up your entire career by falling
sure.
flat on this. And by
Yes.
the way, I think what's so interesting about both Elisabeth Shue and Nicolas Cage in this movie is that these are really hard roles. Like because if you it is a very complex tightrope that you're walking between being despicable and likable, and then on top of that you have to have intense chemistry with the other main actor in this movie, because if any of these things fall the wrong way, this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
It's really fucking bad.
Yeah.
And it is really amazing that both of them could pull off these roles and that they have the insane chemistry that they do.
Yes, and that's a key component as well. This isn't a chemistry like when you talk about romantic movies, you know, and you say, oh, they've got such chemistry. What people mean by chemistry, let's be real. You can imagine these two people fucking in real life by what they're throwing out on the screen. That's what people mean by chemistry. That isn't what's going on here. This is like chemistry in the very human sense. That there's like just little tenderness, little hand gestures, little fingers. Just, you know, you can see this was a very intimate shoot based on, you know, the scenes and the way that they will hang on eye contact and stuff. And what it does is it gives this unbelievable, believable. Like it's such a, like, again, if I told you this was like a documentary, the only thing that would really kind of suck you out of it is the fact you know who the actors are. And it's got this jazz soundtrack in the background because it's really trying to sell. Haha, look at the juxtaposition of jazzy Vegas, jazzy cool Vegas.
I do really like the soundtrack.
Soundtrack's
though,
great.
Soundtrack's great.
Baller,
Mike-
innit? I would listen to this unironically outside of the movie.
Mike
It's really good.
Vegas did some of this. I might have done a lot of it. I know, obviously, the two big numbers that everyone knows from this movie is Sting, because he does that. But and also, what's super interesting is they are performances of old crooner classics. But
Oh, yeah.
But what Sting does is because.
Oh no, this sounds like what you listen to in the bar
Yeah.
when you're drinking the martini and stuff. Yeah, of course.
I mean, my one and only love
One and
is
only
an
love, yeah.
all-time
Yeah.
jazz classic, and it's one of my favorite
Sting's
jazz
version
classic
is
songs,
great.
and it is front and center in this.
Yeah, Sting's version is really good because, again, it hits this sorrowful tone, which is appropriate for the movie. And, you know, if you think about it, for both of them, that line, you know, you're my one and only love, is true in that moment in their lives. They're not talking about in a profound sense that they found each other and they're going to run away to an island. You know, she's going to put it all on black and they're going to win because it's in Vegas. And Vegas itself is a super interesting place to frame such a sad story, because why does Vegas pop in cinema and literature and contemporary references? Vegas is the distillation of the American dream. If you believe the American dream is real, what Vegas offers up is for tourists. You don't even have to be American, you know. Or maybe you are an American, but you come from a podunk town. You can come here with $50 in your pocket, and you might just get lucky, and you might just make it big. And if you do, we're gonna give you all the free shit, all the comp shit that all the rich people get. It's for many people, it's the one time you get to experience what the American dream can be.
It's more than that, Richard. Like that's
I'm
the distillation of
underselling
the
it.
American dream. But well, I mean, let me just add on top of what Vegas is. It's a city that shouldn't exist in the middle of the fucking desert through the magic of American engineering.
Sure, it's
and wealth.
the Riyadh of America in some ways. Yeah,
Yeah, it is fake as fuck. You know, it is trying to be a kind of, you know, more chintzy version of other places on Earth. It's co-opting all of this other imagery and slapping it all together in a visual scene that makes no sense and is, like, honestly kind of disturbing. It's glitz over substance. It is the ideal of the American past. Like, honestly, I would say in the time period where this movie was filmed, this was when Vegas was really changing from the Rat Pack era into the contemporary strip. Because as we saw when we discussed Con Air, They in Con Air, which was filmed a couple years later than this, they were filming the destruction of the Sands Hotel, and the Sands Hotel is famous for the Rat Pack and the era of the 60s. This was when the modern construction of the Strip was taking place, and it was the period of transition between the old Hollywood glamorized Vegas and the new Bellagio fountain Vegas.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is the thing with Vegas, though, because by the way, I love all Vegas. I used to be out there on Fremont for what they call the First Friday parties. They have them every month on the first Friday of the month. And just big street parties. And, that's it's in Fremont. So if you know, you know.
Yeah, but that was downtown Vegas, and downtown Vegas was shit.
Yeah,
at this time,
but that's what I'm talking about.
Garbage.
I mean,
it's like nice now.
Nicer. I would go so far as to say.
Yeah, I know. I've been down there tonight too.
But obviously a lot of old Vegas is kind of it's dilapidated, and they're knocking a lot of these older casinos down. Many, by the way, from some of the movies you will have seen, the iconic ones, they're gone. They're gone. The times change, and if you ever want to go to Vegas and you want to get opposite ends of the experience, the Circus is still standing. You might not stay in a worse dive in all of Vegas, honestly, out of all of the major hotels from the glory days of Vegas. Stay in the Circus. By the way, there's still an unsolved double homicide that was there, like just not that long ago. Like a couple with someone just came in their room, shot them both, laid them on a bed, left. Apparently no one can get to the bottom of that. Who knows? Vegas and unsolved shootings, eh? But anyway, I've stayed in the Circus for fun, but then you contrast that to a place like the Aria, which was kind of more mass. But I like the
Wynn,
the Aria or the Venetian were my two. I mean, like when we did E-League, Duncan will tell you we had the suites in the Venetian. That was some fucking ball of shit. The way that old Vegas contrasts with new Vegas, it's very stark and it's very apparent. And these casinos are huge, massive buildings, hotels with thousands of rooms, and they occupy so much space. So what happens when they stop making money? What happens? They just kind of sit there and they rot and they crumble. Probably something you could do for the gothic vampire shit that you like. There's probably a really good gothic vampire thing that could be made in a crumbling hotel in Vegas or something. But because it's got that, it's a thing out of time. You can imagine back when it was rocking and banging. But all you see now is how it just doesn't even make sense. I feel that way about the Excalibur, which is explicitly referenced in this. I think that's like a gaudy bauble of when they were trying to make Vegas almost like a theme park for adults. And there's still some elements of that. There's
the
casinos.
Luxor still there?
Yeah, the Luxor's still there. You also have that roller coaster one is it Paris?
The three of us, the last time I was in Vegas with you guys, the three of us were drinking in the Luxor.
Yeah, I mean, listen, well, because, again, just a I feel terrible for Nick Cage. Hopefully we'll go long on this episode. But what people probably don't realize is, like, Vegas and esports, like everything else that was happening, it just became entwined. Obviously, Duncan and I, when we were doing E-League, we were out there for the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, which happens at the start of the year, 1 week before the adult entertainment
That was
awards.
where the Shackburn
That's where the
clip
Shackburn
took
came
place,
from. We
people
did it
don't know,
in
yeah.
Vegas. And that was like basically because Turner go there every year because they do an inside the NBA show there. And obviously it's a lot of fun because, Shaq, I mean, like, I watched it with my own eyes. I watched Shaq walk past. They're selling you all of the tech. And I watched Shaq buy, he went, I'll have one of those. And it was like a drone. And then he was like fucking around with the drone. And then he was, I'll have one of those. And it was like a Segway. Now he's on a Segway with a drone. Then someone showing him a hologrammatic like car thing. He goes, I'll have that. And like, you just spent millions in seconds on all these like gadgets and gizmos. And, they have a good time out there. They do content around it. And we were told, if you're on Turner, it's for real. We want to launch E-League there. So we launched in Vegas. That's where the Shackburn comes from. And that's where all those iconic moments. No one even remembers the game. Everyone remembers that. Everyone remembers the desk. Not to toot our own horns, but that was like, we had the executives come to us afterwards in a very Vegas meeting. Well, we think we struck gold here, kids. And it was like, that was that. And Duncan had his one moment I've ever seen him even remotely starstruck where he got to take a photo with Charles Barkley. And, like, for us, we were just cast loose in Vegas in a suite in the Venetian. And for me, I was like, I probably even said this to Duncan. I said, did we make it? But that's what it felt like. When Vegas is good, it feels like nothing else. But what I come to realize from living there is, man, it gets old real fast. Even good Vegas gets old real fast. When I moved out there, I've said this before in previous episodes, I spent 6 months unable to get home, essentially. I would only go home occasionally. I was only 15 minutes up the road in an Uber, but I would get so fucked up. I'd just be like, I'll just get a suite tonight. And the way they keep you there is insane. Like, the way they lock you in. That you stay there. They go, oh, we see you again, Mr. Lewis. You stayed here a few days ago. We'll give you a discount. Oh, wicked. Okay, cool. Give you a discount, and then you'll want your usual late checkout. Yeah, I probably will have a hangover. Yeah, actually, check me out at 3. And then you get a phone call at like 2:45. Would you like a late lunch? Compliments of the house. Oh, no, I'm too hungover to eat now. Can I extend my checkout, actually? Oh, 5. Of course, Mr. Lewis, no problem. And then you get a fucking steak with a Alaskan king crab leg on the side and a spicy Bloody Mary. And now suddenly you're fueled up. Well, why would I go home? Out there is a fucking playground of the imagination. Anyone with money can do anything they want to do in Vegas. Legalized fucking weed. You know what to talk to. You get some lines. There's a guy who works in the good hotels whose entire job is to get you an escort. And by the way, don't ever call an escort a hooker. They are not the same. A hooker is someone that hooks in their trade from the street. That's why they're called hookers. Right? Also used to have a connotation that they were maybe going to steal from you in some way. That's the etymology of it. Anyone tells you different, they're lying. But an escort is a high class. I mean, they bring you a fucking portfolio of all the lingerie modeling they've done, for instance. Not talking from experience, obviously, too pure for any of that. But anyway, there's that's how you're living in that moment. And if you've got the cash and you've got the means, they will look after you in Vegas. What you quickly realize is, man, it's fucking dull. It's so dull drinking every night. And so anyway, when esports came to Vegas, that's how I'm living. And I got to meet all these people. I've met people who run casinos, the MGM. Remember MGM housed Renegades, our colleague Sponge. I've known Sponge years, good friend. He was living in a fucking casino, like essentially playing games and in a public area where people came to look and rubberneck. We were drinking in the Luxor because that's where they created that esports arena, right?
Yep.
And so I ended up, because of the match fixing coverage and stuff, obviously very relevant to sports books interests, I was getting pulled into all these meetings with like fucking politicians and power players and casino owners and being told like, what do you think? Could we offer the action here? Could we do this? Should we like legitimize it? What are your opinion? You're like the foremost journalist on esports match fixing. And it was like people were listening to my shit. It was wild. Like, at the top end of Vegas, like I say, it is a very positive and profound experience. But ultimately, it is a very hollow and shallow place for that same reason. As soon as I wasn't anything, I don't think I've heard from any of those people. Nobody said, for instance, when I was like staring at the abyss of having to leave the country within 60 days because I no longer had a job and therefore my visa wasn't valid. None of my casino buddies called me up and said, we'll just give you a fake title here. Well, no one said that. None of the esports orgs have helped get into Vegas or anything. None of them turned around and helped me. It was just, shit, that sucks. See ya. See ya. Yeah, and you're going through crippling grief and depression as well. And you've got a substance abuse problem and you have to somehow negotiate getting all of your stuff from this house to that house while also negotiating how to operate a funeral for a friend and communicating with their family. And don't worry, you'll be fine. Rich, you've got this, mate. You've got this. So that's where I was. By the way, the friends who helped me out during that time are just like some sort of blood brother or sister, like for life. There's nothing they couldn't ask of me because I quickly found out who my real friends were around this time, and it certainly was not the people that were giving me fucking free cocktails at 4 a.m. in casinos. So, yeah, we had a lot of times in Vegas in esports. It was the perfect place for esports, wasn't it? It's all fugazi, fake, bright lights, fireworks display, ultimately soulless, and it'll do anything for money. It should have been a marriage made in heaven. So, yeah. Anyway, back to the movie. Sorry, it's devolving into a
but I do think the fantasy of Vegas is just highly relevant to this film. Absolutely. Because in a way it also allows Sera to deny what's going on with Ben, Elisabeth Shue and Nicolas Cage's characters, because she doesn't have to deal with his crippling alcoholism mentally because she is a prostitute who deals with people on Vegas benders all the time. Is this alcoholism, or is this just another person unloading in Vegas on a bender?
He has the great line, doesn't he? When somebody says, "What is it?" It's something. It's you're drinking to kill yourself, and he says, "No, I'm killing myself to drink."
Are you saying that your drinking is a way to kill yourself?
Or killing myself is a way to drink.
Very clever.
And that is such a great way of framing like what happens to an alcoholic, where booze is all that. Booze is above everything. Like, you choose the method to drink yourself to death because you just love drinking. You just fucking love drinking. I mean, like, it's as simple as that. You will put drink above anything. You know, been there. Holy shit. You know, I mean, like, I'm talking about like weeks without a break. Weeks where the only way you cure the hangover, you don't cure it with a cup of black coffee and a nice breakfast, lots of water, 2 aspirin, and then you go to work. I'm talking about you just call in sick, cut off all your appointments. It's just you and the fucking bottle. Like that I'm talking about that. I'm talking about that every day for weeks. I'm talking about losing track of time. I'm talking about mixing it with
Notice
pills.
how in this film he doesn't just do old-fashioned Hollywood. Oh, I'm drunk. He has every different stage of being drunk, and the amount of desperation and intensity. Like the scene, for example, when he goes and he can't even sign a check because he's got the fucking DTs. He's sweating like a motherfucker.
He's got the staggers.
It's so intense.
I have
this
brain
film.
surgery, he says. Because what he's trying to do is
Yeah.
he's making out that he's got like the yips because he's so nervous.
Yep.
And
I love it then when he has the fantasy of what he's going to do once he's had the alcohol and go back.
Yeah.
And he's going to charm that
Yeah.
woman.
As you can
sex her up
see
and
there,
oh,
and he's
exactly,
probably humming. It's probably coming off him. Like, he's probably just breathing out of his bones because he sat there and he's drank like, 10 shots of neat gin just to get level. By the way, unbelievably accurate. Like, when you get to that physical stage of dependency on alcohol, which again, I'm making assumptions that you don't know. So, but I've definitely been there. I mean, I went through a pretty horrible withdrawal. I even checked myself in. I've been in a drying out clinic, one of those where they take your phone and all that shit. And did like a few days in there to get over the hump of it, where they give you like benzos to fucking take the edge off, because it's fucking bad. I mean, it is bad. I'm talking about
can kill you.
I'm talking about vomiting. I'm talking about.
I mean, the joke there, Monty, is they give you benzos, themselves incredibly addictive things that destroy people's time. This will help you get out of the hole.
Yeah,
that's how bad.
I think it was
diazepam
diazepam they gave me. I can't remember. Again, it's all a bit of a blur. But the diarrhea, your stomach's in knots, the sweats, and
it's why I say, by the way, I've never had anything approaching a physical addiction. Like, my addictions in life, as you can imagine, are all psychological.
Yeah,
like, I will even say I've only ever psychologically been addicted to weed. I've never been at the bottom of the bottle. I've just been the guy who smoked too much weed, and even then, like, the physical things there, you can offset those, mate. It's a skill issue. You learn how to take the right supplements, how to have some water in the morning. That's not like a hard physical addiction. Like, these are you can put it this way. I will never be able to ever claim the victimhood people do on that shit, because I did watch Half Baked, and yes, I have never sucked dick for weed, have I? Like, it was. There's levels to this shit. You know what I mean? The difference is, you literally can die by just going cold turkey from alcohol. That's real.
Yeah, I mean, and
that's a real thing.
I never was a big shaker, but I would get the chills, is how I would describe it. It was kind of like having a fever, and
By the way, isn't that a great scene in this movie? The very tender one where he climbs into bed and she sort of is mothering him, basically. Like, it's a really tender moment. Yeah.
So it is horrible when you're at that stage, because all you have to do is just put seriously, like, one pull of a bottle and you are. It's insane. It's almost miraculous. Like, again, I've been there. I've tried to do it myself a few times. You know when you're getting to that stage. The giveaway is what I don't know if this is the term for it, but it's the sobriety headache. And the sobriety headache is you get this unbelievable pounding bass-like headache down here in the haunches of your thing, and it will not go away. It's not a painkiller thing. Nothing can touch it. The only thing that can touch it is the booze. Now, if you can ride out this unbelievable crippling headache for a day, maybe two, with all the other problems, the sweats usually, and maybe a bit of nausea, you'll be all right. That's when you're not in too deep. That's not DTs. But that's when your body is telling you at that time, shouldn't we have some booze about now? Shouldn't we be getting fucking turned up, Richard? Like, what's happening here? It's 10 o'clock and you haven't touched a drop. And that's what's happening in your psychology. And you're thinking, well, look, man, I had my blood work recently. My liver function's fine. I'm clearly not doing any long-term damage. You make all these rationalizations, your internal monologue, and you think, why go through the headache? Who even gives a fuck? What am I going to sit here and feel bad for? I'll just have another drink. And also, when you're living in somewhere like Vegas, you can just order it 24 hours a day to your house. Doesn't matter where you go, you can't escape. You can drive up the fucking, what's it called, Blue Diamond fucking roads. You can drive all the way into the fucking desert. Someone will come and deliver you a fucking bottle if you put the order in. So very hard to get clean in a place like that. Very hard to clean your shit up. So what they do in this movie, by the way, Nick Cage, one of the reasons why it's his best performance, what he did was he went out drinking in Dublin and he went on a 2-week bender. And he filmed himself the entire time he was drinking, and he had his friends film him and stuff. And then he sat and studied the videos of his speech patterns and his mannerisms when he was shit-faced, and then incorporated that to make it look authentic. There's a lot of...
And it is very authentic.
Yes.
There's a brilliant line I once heard someone say about acting, which was like genius, because he said that a bad actor pretends to be drunk, but a great actor knows that a drunk is pretending to be sober.
Yes.
And that is like a fucking mind blow. And I think Nicolas Cage nails it in this film.
Totally.
He isn't
and not
just
only
a
that-
24/7 with the bottle. Like, no, there's a bit of
Yeah.
that, but he's trying to hold it together in different stages, you know?
Yeah.
Not only that, Richard, but on top of, I read that part, but also I was reading, I found a podcast that Figgis, the director, did, where he was talking about this, and he said that one of the things that Cage did was he rented a suite at the Chateau Marmont, which is a very famous hotel in Hollywood, in Vegas, or in LA. And Chateau Marmont it's kind of like a residence hotel where a lot of celebrities had lived. It's where Jim Belushi died of the overdose.
I think they've had a few deaths. I also want to say
anyway,
like Hunter Biden might have been there for a bit or something. So
yeah. So basically, it is an LA institution.
Yeah.
It's a hotel that has like suites and cottages and stuff in kind of the hills of Los Angeles, by Sunset Boulevard. And he apparently rented a suite where they did their rehearsals, and he paid out of pocket for that. And what he would do is, not only did this give them more time to practice the acting in the film, but he was drinking while he was there. So he would get drunk and then film himself there as well, in order to get footage of himself to copy for the role. So he was really invested in that. Also, interestingly, in that podcast, they neither Figgis nor Nicolas Cage were ever paid for this movie.
Yeah, I heard that.
They were supposed to each be paid $100,000, and they were never paid because they were told this movie didn't make money, even though it made over $30 million against a $3 million budget.
Yeah, I did.
So they never made a dime.
But it's what I mean. There's a lot of mythologizing around this film, and it's very hard to pick apart what's true and what isn't. For instance, there was always stories. Nick Cage was just getting drunk for real. I mean, by the way, you told me it now, I'd totally believe it. But you couldn't put in a performance this nuanced if you weren't actually in control of how you convey information. The other thing that I heard was like when he takes that spill and knocks over the casino table. By the way, I have seen some fucking states in casinos, and they're always trying to find that sweet spot when they're plying you with watered down liquor, which is you're going to make bad judgments, but they don't want you to ever cause a scene. And by the way, if you do cause a scene, they just pick you up, escort you out. Police are never called. We got shit to do. Like, we've got money to make. Like, so I've seen people in all various states. I've seen every caricature you can imagine. I've seen the guy with the loose tie calling up his wife saying, like, look, don't look at the bank account. I've seen guys fucking getting upset with the croupier. I've seen the guys literally bouncing off the fucking fruit machines. I've seen it all. And it's very believable that at that time of night in a fucking casino, you absolutely might see somebody fall into the table and have to be escorted out. It's just something that happens in Vegas. That's it. So it was all unbelievably authentic. There's no need to mythologize the film and pretend to try and diminish the performances or the direction in some way by ultimately saying that, like, it was real. They did it like, no, this is screenplay to screen done masterfully. That's what it is. And that's why it feels genuine and authentic and very it's it's not an overly sentimental film either. I don't think. I think it could have been. It could have been so maudlin and sickly and sad and please stay with me, baby. It could have been that, but it's not that.
In addition to the performances, which are remarkable, I think you have to talk about the direction of this film too, because the experience of watching this film, because of the editing and the direction, makes it feel like you, the viewer, are on a bender.
Yes.
Which is fascinating that they were able to accomplish this. If you look at the beginning of the film where he's still in LA, you get all of those you get all the scenes where he's breaking down. Then you just have the silent scream while he's in the car. You have the scene where he's just watching the police officer while drinking the bottle of vodka and, making sure that he sort of hides it. But you can tell his self-destructive drive is there because he's toying. He's fucking toying with getting caught. It's a game at that point in time.
I mean, how ridiculous is that scene where he basically just goes and sort of we've already addressed this in the past episode, but like talks himself into getting beaten up by that fucking guy in a bar? Like, that's just purely self-destructive behavior.
Also a bit close to home on that one. Yeah, go on. Sorry, man.
You want to tell the story again?
Nah, there's no point.
You've already told it on this show. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I don't remember what episode it was, though. The problem is I can't remember what movie we were reviewing, but we did tell this story before.
But long and the short, sometimes you just need someone to kick the shit out of you to fucking help you get realigned with what's going on. But yeah, sorry, you were gonna say something. Definitely make your point.
I think that it really reflects I mean, many of us, even if you're not alcoholic, like I've been on multi-day benders, and the way that this movie plays with time and perception via the editing and direction, and the way you're kind of dropped in and out of scenes, the way the viewer is kind of in and out of consciousness with Nicolas Cage's character Ben is really interesting, because it's not a POV movie, but a lot of the information we are getting is when he is awake as opposed to passed out on the couch, and his knowledge of events is kind of the viewer's knowledge of events for a lot of the film. And it really does feel like you are drunk. And like, honestly, I think one of the things that's so amazing about this movie is that I just feel physically ill watching this movie. It's
a whirlwind.
Hard to watch.
It's a whirlwind, for sure.
But it's like the amount of, because of the way it's shot and the way that it's paced and the way that it's directed, you feel like you're chugging that bottle of alcohol with him.
Yeah.
Like when he's packing up the suitcase to leave the motel and he's pouring all of the last little bits of all those bottles into one glass and then chugging it down. I mean, I feel like I'm chugging that glass. And like that is remarkable for a film to make you that
There's some
queasy.
really good jump cuts, essentially, which again, if you've ever been on a bender, you know sometimes it's like autopilot, you're in a party. Wait, what the fuck? Now, when you were doing it, there was some coherence there. The memory isn't like that at all when you wake up, right? I mean, people talk about being blackout drunk. Like, there's nothing worse than getting into the blackout stage, because this is another reason why I've never fucked with the argument. People always say, in vino veritas, that when you're drunk, you reveal some universal truth.
I hate it so much, Richard, because I always want to say to someone like that, it's like the people who say psychedelics don't work. Come with me, and I'll give you enough to get there. Anyone who says that thing when someone slips up on stream, live stream fails, if you say that, they were thinking it, mate. Come with me on a bender, and I will get you to do or say anything. I think I could do it with anyone, because I think there's an inhuman nature about that judgment, isn't there, Richard?
Completely.
Like this notion that like you're secretly some fucked up, irredeemable piece of shit, and the booze just brought it out. You're like, no, it takes you to a dark place too.
It's really changing your brain chemistry. Like, come on.
There's a reason they literally thought of it as like a demonic force attacking you and bringing the worst out of you.
Yeah, I mean, look, with booze especially, you have to understand that, yes, we all love it. We all love the delicious ethanol, methanol, like fucking derangement of the senses. Love that. That's why we do it recreationally. But when you do it to excess, to the point, I mean, like, you are impairing yourself on an intellectual level, which is fucking ridiculous.
To me, it really is that notion that you're trying to erase yourself. You're not trying to like bring out what you really are. You're trying to destroy you. That's why the ultimate thing is the blackout. Then you don't, like him in this movie, what happened? How did I get home? Like, you don't know that you were the one wilding and making a complete fool of yourself and embarrassing everyone around. But that's ideal because you don't want to exist, right?
Well, I mean, look, this is the other thing with it. It's like, you know, very often people with personality problems or mental health problems, they look to certain types of drugs to help augment what they think it is that they need. And
put it this way, I've never been addicted to alcohol, Richard, because I've never had like the need to do it each day. But every time, put it this way, probably 90% of times I ever drank, and up until the age of about 35, I got binge drinked until I blacked out. And the whole purpose was to erase any social anxiety or any strangeness of how I felt in that setting until like the good moments when you feel like you are the one gliding around and you're so funny and charming and everything's great and there's nothing weird about. But I realize now from the outside that was only going on behind my eyes. I was the fucking
what
person
alcohol
fucking
is
mess,
really good at, and it's actually interesting that people use the misnomer. They say, "Oh, it removes social inhibition." What I find is what it does that almost no other drug does is it removes shame. I think you will feel ashamed the day after. You will
think about the scene early on when he thinks he's picking up that woman and saying, "That is so awkward. Your skin is crawling.
That
You're really
person,
sexy." But he's just like dickhead though, and she's even trying her hardest by the way
to
to
reject him nicely. Maybe when you're sober.
Is really horrible.
Exactly.
That is so on the nose, by the way. Again, what a great film
realistic.
I'm Benjamin. Benny Goodman, that's me, and I think you're sexy. That's right, you are sexy. Look at those eyes. Meow sexy, like a kitty cat. You turn me on, brump. You turn me on, brump. You're not too tall, you're not too short, you're not too round, brump. You're like a cat. The Cat in the Hat. Hey, look at you. Look at those eyes. Honest to God, those eyes. You're luminescent, baby. You are What?
You've been drinking all day.
But of course.
And, you know, but yeah, alcohol removes shame. And for people that go through their lives feeling shame, it is a readily accessible drug. It's the easiest one you're ever going to get. It's almost ubiquitous in certain cultures. And if for somebody that is like tortured with shame, this is the problem with the spiral. This is how quickly it can go. You drink the alcohol, it erases the shame. Finally, I am my pure self. It feels good at the start, but then you have a bit more, and you have a bit more, and you start losing control. And what causes shame? Shame is the mechanism by which we identify that we lost control. We lost our self-control. We behaved in a way that is unacceptable, where it hurts people, hurts yourself, embarrasses you. Sometimes you behave in a way that's so out of character, you're horrified at the reality you could ever do something like that. And you only did it when you were drunk, and you were only drunk because you were feeling shame and remorse about certain aspects of your life anyway to begin with. So this is the spiral. This is why it sucks you in. This is why it gets you. And this is obviously the way Nick Cage does it. I mean, by the way, this is a brilliant little fucking detail when he's waking up from one of the benders. And he's there, and again, like when you wake up from a heavy night drinking, you don't wake up, you reboot. There's about a 15-second period. It might not be 15 seconds, it might be 10. But you forget who you are, and you've lost the thread of your shared reality. Like you're not tethered to yesterday anymore. You come online, and you're like, right, okay, I'm Richard Lewis. Yesterday was a Thursday, and I went out, and okay, right, now I get it. Now I get it. Oh God, that's me. Oh fuck, right? And it's like you just reboot, and he does it. He reboots. You see him do it with his eyes, and then he goes for the ring, the last remnant of his relationship to his wife. Maybe some sort of feeble dream that she might come back to him, his wedding ring, and it's not there. And he's thinking and thinking and thinking, and he thinks back to the sexual tryst he had with the prostitute, and how when she was sucking his fingers, when he was absolutely fucking wasted beyond oblivion and couldn't comprehend what she was going, she sucked the ring off his finger to steal it. That is on the note. That is perfect. That is everything. That is how. And by the way, what does he do? Processes it, goes over to the fridge. I'm smashing. Right, well, no reason to stay sober processing that horrifying memory. Just another fucking day I've degraded myself, another day I've lost something that I actually care about, something that anchors me to being a person. No, I'll just dip the vodka. Fuck this. Blow, it's like you say, it's the erasure. It's the erasure fundamentally of shame. But yeah, some aspect of yourself. I don't want to be me. How can I not be me? Some better drugs give you what they call ego death, and obviously that's a way to erase self, but usually in serving of some higher spiritual message being pumped into the void where your personality used to fill. Alcohol is just like, I just don't want to be this right now or think about this. And there's this drug that if I just take enough of it, it's going to get me to a place where I'm not feeling those things. It is, but ultimately it's like a Band-Aid on a gaping, spiritual wound, essentially. And that's why people, spiral out of control. Nick Cage's character is absolutely, I think he's genuinely ashamed of who he is just in those brief moments where he's sober, to the point where he has to blitz it out. The way he has a pre-rehearsed speech he gives that barman. I know my appearance may make you feel uncomfortable, but if you just serve me tonight, I promise I will never bother you again.
It's not my intention to make you uncomfortable. Please, serve me today, and I'll never come in here again. If I do, you can 86 me.
Stop fucking with me!
Yeah, I know old drunks that have
he
that.
nails the desperation as well as all the embarrassment and all of it. Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you have to understand, like, when you're in desperate need of a drink, when you're that far gone, it's like you will suck the proverbial dick. In fact, actually, that isn't even that's a 3.
By the way,
on
I'll tell you a classic one in
degradation
esports
scale.
that I've seen a million times like this, which is the person who is drunk or hungover from being drunk and they're trying to get onto a plane. Same thing. You can tell they're a bit off, but they're just trying to say whatever the right phrase is to let that fucking hostess let them on the plane. And and I'll be quiet and you can just have one beer. Oh, you heard it a million times. Yeah.
And like, there's a joke in The Simpsons which is also perfect. It would have fitted into this movie perfectly. But it is a good bit, and obviously this movie is certainly not going for comedy. Although I would argue, I think there are some funny moments in this film. But there's the bit where it's the day after stationery, when you've been on a bender, and it's like just a post-it note you pin to the fridge, but it just says, I am sorry for the following, and it's just got a bunch of check boxes. Man, there are times I've needed that in my life, because that's what it feels like again. You would, if you got sober, you would have so much to apologize for. It's why in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's like one of the last stages, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily ascribe to the 12-step as a good way to get clean. But I will, but there's this idea of atonement at the end. Now that I am sober and I am better, I have to reach out to all of the people whose lives that I fucking destroyed with my addiction and offer them apologies and where appropriate reparations. And you do that. And so, but like Nick, how I know the authentic despair of Nick Cage's character in this film is I will not be apologizing. Like I'm done. I'm going to get to the stage where my liver starts to shut down and I die, and nobody better stop me from doing that, because that is how I, as a drunk, am choosing to go out. He could have shot himself. He didn't. It's like letting something you love or you think you love kill you,
By the way, there's another thing. Even though I assume a lot of people will watch the film and not be able to relate to the idea of killing yourself with alcohol, in a way that in itself is a microcosm for the bender, though. Every time you go out to drink, you don't really think about how horrible it's going to be at the end. You're thinking how awesome it is for the first 3 drinks, and then the guy who has the first 3 drinks has a couple more drinks. The problem is the dickhead who has the 8 drinks always goes to the 15 drinks. The guy who comes in the first 4 thinks he can always cut it off at the right time. So you intentionally don't think about the end part. That's part of the process of drinking, isn't it?
And I think Monty made a great point right near the start, where it's very easy, particularly as a guy, like Nick Cage and me. There's definitely in this movie more similarities than I'm comfortable with. But what I wouldn't profess to know a lot about from the female perspective is sex work in a place in Vegas, like Vegas, and I think this is actually a very, and this could be wrong, because obviously I don't have the boots on the ground, perspective. But for me, I think this is a very nuanced and interesting take that ultimately for liberation, to be free from the day job and to some way pick and choose when, where you work, who with, to be able to accrue money, spend money, whatever it might be. There is a liberation there. But also her particular type of liberation comes at a terrible cost because of who she has to be tethered to operate. Equally, I think what this gets right is Vegas can be a good beat or a bad beat for sex workers. And I am talking about, you might be, because they hang around the casinos, the hookers. I'm not talking about the escorts. Escorts, you just call a phone number, someone comes and meets you in a place, you go on a date, and then you can go and consummate. They sit down, it's very matter of fact, they explain the terms of any sexual coupling you might get into. As I say, they might also be like, and look, this is the model this is the modeling I did. It was really, because they do other things. They don't just act as escorts. They're very expensive. Their time is very expensive. They generally have a better class of client. The hooker comes into the casino pretending not to be a hooker, sits at a bar nursing one drink, and then you sit down and they ask if you would like, they talk to you, flatter you a little bit, and then say, would you like to go on a date, which is obviously code of, do you want to buy me some drinks and then pay me to fuck me later on? Now, in Vegas, when you're doing the hooking, when you're trying to get actual trade off the streets, think about the lottery that is. Think about the lottery that is. Like, people in Vegas are generally passing through. So what are the consequences if I do something horrible? They're generally drunk. They're generally feeling entitled.
By the way, there's even a part in this film I think people will miss, which is, think about the negative experiences she has later with some of her clients. That's why she needs to be with a Latvian pimp. You need someone who could go and bitch slap those motherfuckers down.
I mean, that's the crazy part of it, is like you get to see the negatives of both sides, which is that you get to see the negatives of having the pimp, who it can be sexually violent, but also the pimp is the one who protects you from other potentially even more sexually violent people. And it's like, sometimes it's better the devil you know.
I mean, I'll also add as well,
as shitty as that is.
Back in the 90s, there wasn't really the human trafficking angle. Well, it wasn't really explored. Now, prostitution, legalized prostitution, I'm sure we've all, I mean, Duncan, you've been to Amsterdam, you know it better than I do. A lot of the people that work in the sex trade there, it's very dubious.
The joke is everyone's from Romania or somewhere. They're never just like it's not a Dutch woman, put it that way.
It's very dubious. It's very dubious and morally dubious by extension. And I'm somebody that I support sex work. I think it should be legal, right? Like I don't want, but the problems you have even where it's legalized, there are indentured servitude type deals. And equally, the grim reality is sometimes those deals, at least you're protected from a certain type of client. So, I think in terms of how it portrays, like, I think hookers are such a lazy fucking trope in movies in general, man. Particularly the hooker with a heart of gold. I think Pretty Woman is everything wrong with.
It is. I hate that film.
I detest that movie. I detest that movie. It is everything that's wrong with the American cinematic exploration of sex work. That actually there are people out there completely untouched by the degradation that can come with it, or how did they get there in the first place? No need for a backstory. Many of these people the sex work is a desperate attempt to get back to some sort of broken dream that they wanted to pursue once upon a time. Also, not to mention, when you see, depending on where you are in the world, I mean, shit, man, like fucking, you don't even want to know how heartbreaking it is what like happens in LA and stuff. Pretty girls that go out there, they're like maybe be in a movie, meet the wrong person at the wrong fucking party. All of a sudden they're tricking. Like, it's fucking, it's dark, man. And it's like, pretty woman, okay, let's go shopping. Like, what the, like, nah, man. Like, this is fucked up.
And then those waxes, they're being rude to her in a shop. Like, that's not really the worst thing that can happen to you, for fuck's sake. I know, give me a break.
Which, and like I said, this is it's important to show all aspects and facets of it. Like Nicolas Cage's character in this film, Elisabeth Shue's character is uncompromising. I have chosen this, and I accept that when it is bad, but it isn't always bad. And there's no moment where she like goes to Nick Cage like, oh, maybe we don't have to follow that predetermined, maybe we can turn it all around and change it. No, she's made choices. And you have to respect it.
Yeah.
And she makes that clear. It's explicit text. You must respect my choices.
And And what I love about her character, Sera, is that we somehow know even less about her than Ben. Because at least we get some level, like we don't know about how Ben's life came apart, as you said, Richard. He makes it. He himself claims that he's unclear whether it was the addiction that caused his marriage to fall apart, and his job to him to lose his job, or whether it was losing his marriage that caused the addiction that then caused the loss of his job that we see, right? But I think what's so interesting about Sera is we just literally know nothing about her. We know nothing about her family. We know nothing about why she's a prostitute. We know nothing about why she was in Los Angeles and then decided to move to Vegas. We know nothing. I mean, we assume moving to Vegas
But they
was to
show
get
you
away
that
from
one.
Yuri.
They do show you those like little flashbacks when she's like getting abused by the Latvian person. Of like, we see like something similar has happened in LA that's been repeated here, etc. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, we don't know her life circumstances that led her to this moment, or why she's making the choices that she does. And I think that's what's so. Both she and Ben decide to get into this relationship and intentionally choose not to know what their lives were, who they were before, right? It is only what's beautiful about their fucked up relationship is it is a total commitment to the present of that relationship. And it's almost like a Buddhist enjoyment of the moment to moment, where we're going to ignore that you are going to go be a prostitute tonight, and we're going to ignore the fact that you are an alcoholic, because having this drink right now in this environment in this moment is fun.
How do you feel about the name Sera? Do you think they were going for anything with that because of
what the Old Testament reference?
Well, seraph, and just like the seraphim angel.
Oh, because he's like, you're my angel and all that.
You're
sort
my
of
angel.
jazz,
Oh, I
right?
see what you're saying, because it's spelled Sera, right? Like the seraphim. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, do you think they're going for that?
I can see it. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, because
they're very deliberate about she spells the name,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go with yes.
Here's why I think that, and this is why I wanted to get like your opinion. But we love a bit of Bible study on the podcast as well, low key. The reason I thought is she literally does deliver him essentially unto like the next life. Like she essentially.
Well, the other major song in the soundtrack is Angel Eyes.
Yeah,
as well.
And ultimately she sort of like sees him through. I mean, I don't know traditionally, because this is a little bit out of my, because the seraphim, it's not just like they're everywhere, aren't they? They're in like Judaism. They're specifically referenced in Islam as well, and obviously the Old Testament. And I think it is like they're, again, I'll try and get this right. I'm probably going to upset all three major religions, but I think they are like beings that essentially do like like God's will, and they preside over mankind and guide and try and do stuff. So I did wonder if that's what they were going for. I mean, because it's not a happy movie, but ultimately, I guess you can make an argument to say he does attain some form of peace at the end. His torment is over, and prior to that torment being ended, he did get to spend it with someone that genuinely cares about him and genuinely has his interests at heart. I don't like the framing of her as an enabler, even though she is in the very real and technical sense of the word. I think.
I mean, she is, but also she's just not getting in the way of the man with the death wish's death wish.
Yeah. It almost as again, only somebody that is uncompromising in their own lives would respect somebody else being uncompromising, even if to most people. And also, I think you just have to
ask the question of what would have happened if she had tried to stop
kick her out,
him.
surely.
He would he would just leave. He makes it very clear. It's like, don't do that, or I'm just going to go back to a motel. Like, she literally is like a hospice nurse almost.
By the way, this actually reminds me, because you guys have all seen this film, so maybe this will jog your memory in it. Do you remember there's a sequence in the film High Fidelity, the fucking John Cusack film, where he has a girlfriend a bit like this? It's like they're not actually like true lovers. They're just both people down on their luck who are both sort of like rejected by others, and they forge like a relationship of circumstance with like an element of desperation. Yeah, but you can tell it's not supposed to be some great love. It's just the sort of thing of like two people people clinging to each other to
Sounds like
stay afloat
500
on
Days
the
of Summer.
raft of life. Yeah, but a good version of that.
But yeah, no, I do remember that. I can never forgive the film High Fidelity because it gave the world Jack Black, essentially. I fucking hate him with a passion, like the fury of 1,000 suns. I just hate Jack Black.
Picking jockey!
You ever wanted? No, but actually, it brings me some sort of inner peace knowing that that's what he's reduced to. I'll never forgive him for
Just a carnival
yeah,
park.
exactly. Just a fucking clown.
Saying whatever
Clown.
kids need him to say.
Like,
yeah.
I hate him for Tenacious D. I hate him for every film he's been in, with maybe the exception of High Fidelity, where I thought, oh, this guy might be a talented, fat, funny man who can sing a little bit. Oh, God. Never. That's a monkey paw wish right there. So I detest him. I hate him for ruining the remake of King Kong. But anyway, yeah. So Duncan, your thoughts? Do you think she is like an angel of sorts?
I do think that that's actually the one part of the movie maybe that's even missing, is they don't really try to do anything like, there's no like dream logic or, you know, sort of vision sequence or something, but I do think they're almost on some level trying to imply, I know what you mean. To me, she was almost like the idea she brought him some sort of comfort or solace as he does like literally drink himself to death. And in some ways you can even make the argument that if he was just drinking himself to death, surely it would just be pretty much all downhill. But this actually brings out some moments of lightness and some moments of like the real him and all that shit. So there's something going on there. There's something he could have done with that for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think you need the dream logic though, because I think one
No,
of
but
the
I mean, they
things
don't
that-
really try to lead into like an actual
Right,
spiritual
yeah,
part is
yeah,
what I mean,
yeah.
you know. They
But
leave it very
I think-
mundane. It's real world in this movie, you know.
Yeah, I just think that this is such a subtle movie in so many ways, and what we're supposed to do, and I think what Nicolas Cage does very well in terms of his acting, is that it's the way he looks at her. And it's the way he looks at her while under the influence of alcohol, where it makes it seem like he's seeing her as an angel.
This is the home of an angel.
Are you okay?
Of course. Wow. Oh, you look extremely beautiful.
I do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's the expression on his face. It's the fact that you know he's incredibly drunk, right? And having these fantasies and his thoughts are sliding all over the place, that I think makes it more powerful, because it's about his perception as opposed to, you know, and I don't think we need the POV shot of her with the angel wings or whatever. Not that you were suggesting that, but I'm just saying, like, we don't need that, because it's just implied.
No, but I
through
mean, but it is
good
sweet.
acting.
You could if you wanted and you were bold.
Yeah.
Because like some other type of director might have put something at the end, like you could see his spirit lit.
If
ladies
David
badly,
Lynch
or,
had
you know,
directed
some shit like that, or he has a vision on the way out or something.
If David Lynch had directed this, that absolutely happens, like it does in The Elephant Man, and to a lesser extent, the woman behind the radiator in Eraserhead. And look, I'll be honest. I think, like, if you did do something weird like that at the end of this movie, absolutely glad they didn't. It's perfect as it is. It's a stellar film. We'll get to the critics' assessment of it in a moment. But if you did do something like that, it would feel earned. Like it was like his fucked up last death dream, so he went out happy, and you could feel good about it. Because I think the fundamental problem people are gonna have with this movie is this is bleak. It is fucking bleak, guys. Like
Also, with how long it
fuck
lasts,
up.
I feel like you will genuinely think, if you've never watched this film before, 2/3 of the way through, there's going to be some sort of a turn.
You'll want it.
It isn't. It keeps going
You'll
down.
be begging
You're
for
like,
it.
please stop.
Yeah, you
And it just keeps getting, it just hits you with like scene after scene of it becoming more and more and more depressing, and then it's just, oh, he just leaves, and then she comes and he's dying, and she fucks him as one final mercy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
She fucks him with a whiskey dick soft cock, telling him he's a stallion or whatever. It's mental. It's a fucking crazy way for him to go out. Like, but I mean, look. Obviously, there's actually an interesting aspect to that as well. Clearly, this is a guy who used to be a womanizer. I mean, this is all subtextually. This is a guy who was like attractive, and obviously it's Nick Cage, so what you see is what you get, right? He's either your type or he ain't. But what they're implying is, because like booze does also take a physical toll on you. People always make the joke, like, it preserves you.
The makeup on him in
By the
this
way,
movie
in
is
his own way,
crazy.
though,
Layer
He
of
looks
grease,
that's
that
another-
sheen of
Another
sweat.
thing about this era is this is also towards the end of the era where he actually is a somewhat good-looking
Yeah, yeah.
guy. Like the later Nick Cage has become some sort of weird plastic surgery, like fucking, I don't know, caricature of himself. Yeah. Like, it looks like he's wearing a mask of his own face now. This is actually when he was, like, fairly good looking in his own way.
And you know, obviously, so he when he's just in the queue at the bank and he's like talking into his fucking dictaphone, which obviously all high-powered Hollywood executives, the screenwriters have to have, because you might get an idea in a second and you gotta fucking get it in there. And he's just going, the things I would do to you with a bottle of bourbon, I would fuck you, I would pour bourbon between your legs. It's like,
If you poured bourbon onto your naked body and said to me, drink this. If you spread your legs and you had bourbon dripping from your breasts and your pussy and said, drink here, then I could fall in love with you.
he probably has done these things back in the day. He probably has, right? But obviously he doesn't get to do them now because he's so repellent as a person, as he's just like all jerky movements, a layer of fucking sweat on him, like just pouring out of his face.
Also, the pallid face.
I mean,
he looks lifeless.
That's the other beauty of it, in the sense that when you're drunk, when you're holding it down, when you know you're holding it down, right? Like you are desperately like fighting to just keep the coherence. You think you're doing it sick. You think you're doing it. By the way, you do get better at it over time. Like, I absolutely have been in some fucked up states. No, people will tell you, holy shit, I had no idea Richard was that fucking drunk. He seemed to. You get good at it with practice. But let me tell you, sometimes when you're a real hardcore drunk, you kind of don't give a fuck. But you think you're sort of holding it together. But everybody around him in this movie can see what a fucking state he's in. People physically recoil from his appearance. Like he's a fucking ghoul in a graveyard. They're like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Also the smell.
Yeah, well, there'll probably be a bit of that too, right? Hygiene's definitely one of the first things to fucking go.
No, just the smell of booze.
I'm talking about just, like, if you're constantly sweating all the time, drinking all the time, you just roll out of bed, start drinking again, you fucking slept in those clothes, fuck it, let's get at it, let's go. I mean, yeah. Sometimes you're going to come across some hummers. And yeah, but obviously, yeah, booze is just, it's got a way of like spicy food and garlic and certain types of things. Booze has a way of getting into you and it stays in you. And when you're sweating it out, it's really acrid. It's a particular type of smell. It's very strong kind of body odor it produces. So I imagine everything about him is just repulsive. But he's remembering who he was, you know, in that moment. And so he thinks he's got a genuine chance with any of these chicks. Elisabeth Shue, like a prostitute, just finds a soft spot for him because he's like an injured bird. But instead of nursing him back to health, she just fucking watches him die slowly while whispering sweet nothings in his ear. And like when he says that, by the way, all you can do is you can never ask me to stop drinking. That he's not just saying that to Elisabeth Shue, he is saying that to the audience. He may as well look at the camera when he delivers that line, right? Because you're gonna be going, oh, not now. Not now. Things are going well, Nick. Come on. Pull it back together. Maybe you can get back to Hollywood. What if you spend some of that money on a typewriter? Please. But no, you can scream.
I love that about this movie, though.
It's what makes it.
Nope.
It's what makes it memorable. I mean,
there's no redemption.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you about another great drunk movie. One of the great ones. In fact, a friend bought me for this on Blu-ray in a not so subtle way to tell me to get my fucking shit together. And we might even do this on the arc, because we've talked about doing a Billy Wilder arc at some point. It's directed by Billy Wilder. It's called The Lost Weekend. And have you ever seen this?
Yeah,
good. I was going to say it.
One of the old-timers.
I wasn't...
And very watchable for somebody on a modern audience.
It was one of those where, like, as you know, I'm enamored with Billy Wilder and movies from this period. It was one that actually just wasn't really... like, I didn't have a great fondness for it. I'd seen it, but I didn't have a great fondness. And then my friend got it for me on Blu-ray. And it is like... I mean, it's the prototype to this movie. It's got it all, you know, alcoholic writer, fucking really struggling with the bottle, you know, fucking relapses, drinks himself into a fucking stupor. You know, the only difference here is he gets his shit together at the end. And they probably, you just had to do that in movies back then. This is like, that's like 1940 something. You just had to do that then. He can't drink himself to death in fucking 1945. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's doing that. That's
the Hays Code, I'm pretty sure, would not let you do that.
But like, obviously, if you make a remake of that movie, maybe someone has. I've not seen it, but you absolutely of course he drinks himself to death. But they even have a part where he goes to a hospital, and he's like lying on those pallet beds in a drunk ward, which was like a thing they had, just a drunk wing. And he's just there, like gangster tripping with the DTs, like singing things and shit. So it's a crazy movie, and ultimately it is the bones of that movie are in this. It's Mike Figgis's take on that, like what happens to a creative mind when it can sort of. Again, I always think the assumption is like he's been struggling creatively as well. You might go looking for creativity in a bottle, and it can be good in spurts. I did this. I find it really hard to write these days, like for long, protracted amounts of time. That might be booze. That might just be the internet just rotting all our brains. But I used to be able, like back when I was in the peak of my powers, like, well, I'd sit down and blast out 3,000 words, no problem. Like it was just nothing to me. Like, get that out. I used to go to LAN events when I used to be the reporter. I would do like a 3,000, 4,000 word, like on the ground diary, transcribe an interview, have a little bump so I could stay up, write a 1,500 word opinion piece, do a match report. I used to write fucking probably like 10,000 words a day, like a dissertation a day of coverage, and it did not touch me at all. Now I get to 800 words, man, and I'm like fucking Nick Cage. Like, you can 86 me, I can 86 you anytime I want. Please, just give me more. I just need 400 more words, and then I can pretend this is an article. So I understand, like you go looking for, you want to capture your best, and booze might not always be the best way to do it.
So speaking of writing, what were the reviews, Richard? Hit us with them.
Let's do it. I hate to say it, Ebert's ride or die with us on the Nick Cage arc so far. 4 stars. He said it was the 8th best movie of the 90s in a list that he did. And he really, again, seemed to understand it. So let me get you. This movie works as a love story, but really romance is not the point here any more than the sex is. The story is about 2 wounded, desperate, marginal people and how they create for each other a measure of grace. One scene after another finds the right note. If there are 2 unplayable roles in the stock repertoire, they are the drunk and the whore with a heart of gold. Cage and Shue make these cliches into unforgettable people. Cage's drunkenness is inspired in part by a performance he studied Albert Finney's alcohol console in Under the Volcano. You sense an observant intelligence peering from inside the drunken man, seeing everything clearly but sadly. Shue's prostitute is, however, the crucial role because Sera is the one with a choice. She sees Ben clearly and decides to stick with him for the rest of the ride. When he lets her down badly towards the end of the movie, she goes out and does something that no hooker should do. By the way, Ebert giving hookers lectures, gets herself into a motel room with a crowd of drunken college boys. And we see how she needed Ben because she desperately needed to do something good for somebody else. He was her redemption. And when it seems he scorns her gift, she punishes herself. Leaving Las Vegas is one of the best films of the year. It deserves many Academy Award nominations. That such a film gets made at all is a miracle. One can see how this miracle could have been softened and compromised, and that would have been wrong. It is a pure grand gesture that he is an alcoholic and she works the streets are simply the turnings they have taken. Beneath their occupations are their souls, and because Ben essentially has given up on his, the film becomes Sera's story about how even in the face of certain defeat, we can at least insist on loving and trying. That's the best thing Roger Ebert's ever wrote, by the way.
Holy fuck. That is by far the best review we've ever read. I think he's nailed it. That's crazy.
I actually agree. And by the way, if you look, oh my God, it made me sick. Right, think about 1990 motherfucking 5 and the movies that were out there with...
Oh, it's probably the greatest year of the 90s.
12 Monkeys, Casino, Leaving Las Vegas. Like, it's just...
Isn't that the year for Heat?
Heat.
Yeah, it was the year for Heat.
Yeah,
right?
It's unbelievable,
So,
isn't it?
do you want to know what won Best Picture?
Oh, Usual Suspects that year
Usual
too, by the
Suspects,
way.
yeah.
Yes, what an
Usual
unbelievable
Suspect.
year. Come on, it's going to be...
I think Kevin Spacey did win the Oscar for Best Supporting Role.
Okay.
He won Best Supporting Actor, I know that.
So go on. Best Picture in 95? Braveheart.
Ooh, that's rough.
Do you want to know? Right. So this wasn't.
What were the nominees?
This wasn't nominated for Best Picture in '95. Neither was Casino.
What?
Neither was Heat. No,
What?
I'm going to read you.
What?
So this is for the Oscars that it was eligible for. Here we go. Right, Braveheart, obviously the winner. Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks.
These are
okay.
all mainstream as fuck.
Babe.
Babe, Jesus.
Babe?
That'll do, pig. That'll do. Hey, Heat, get that out of here. That'll do, pig. That'll be... Oscar bait.
I mean,
it's
actually,
crazy Oscar bait. Charlotte's fucking Web remade. Are you fucking
It
kidding
might.
me?
I'll double check the Heat thing because it might have fallen into the previous years.
Oh, right.
You know how
It
it
was the
works.
year,
It
I
doesn't
see
go
what you
like
mean.
year
Right.
to year. So anyway,
Yeah.
I will double check that. I do remember Heat must have got nominated for something. So we'll ignore the Heat thing. I'll double check it in a
I
second.
agree, though. If
But
you
yeah,
have a look at... Oh, by the way, here's a few other ones from 1995. Seven, Crimson Tide. Mate, it's an unbelievable year. It's mental.
yeah. So
It's mental
Il
this year.
Postino, which is that Italian like drama comedy thing about the called The Postman or whatever. Then you have Sense and Sensibility,
Fuck off.
yeah, with Emma Thompson.
Fuck right
That
off.
was the choices. Casino snubbed. Leaving Las Vegas snubbed. Let's just quickly check because that was the
It must be Dead Man Walking, as you said. 'cause
yeah
the
Dead Man
actress
Walking
won
was
the
up there as
fucking-
well.
I'm sure that
So
was
let me just
nominated.
look, 67th Academy Awards it would have been because they technically happened in '96 because they happened at the start of the year. So let's just say Heat must have got nominated. Surely.
No, it wasn't. I checked. He was nominated for no Academy Awards.
Fucking crazy. What a disgrace. So yeah, you think about this span of time, right? And basically the previous Oscars is where Forrest Gump cleaned up. Pulp Fiction, which came out in '94, was snubbed that year, as was Shawshank Redemption. So, I mean, whenever we do these and we come back and we look at these like critically acclaimed
By the way,
films,
I will just point out, because Roger Ebert can't go unslandered. He did rate The Usual Suspects as one of his worst films, and The Usual Suspects did win Best Screenplay and Best Supporting Actor this year.
if you'd put Nick Cage in it as verbal, he would have loved it probably. I think we found he's just a secret Nick Cage stan the whole time. But fair enough. I mean, so anyway, yeah, like this movie, I'm amazed. I am amazed that this movie wasn't nominated for Best Picture. I mean, like it is crazy that it wasn't. It's Mike Figgis's best film. I don't want to say by a long way. He makes interesting films. I mean, he followed this up, by the way, by making something called The Loss of Sexual Innocence, which is like some insane docudrama. It's not very good, and it's told out of sequence and non-linear. Essentially, he did it like a lot of people when they make the good, critically acclaimed movie that makes 10 times its budget. You get the keys to the city, and it's what you choose to do. And unfortunately, a lot of directors, they don't want to make the next Wicked film. They want to do that pet project they've always held on to for 20 years. And unfortunately, the reason that never got made is probably on some level it's dog shit. So he did it. It's altered states all over again. But look, I think ultimately, like, obviously I've got a personal relationship with this movie. It's why I didn't want to go over it scene by scene. It's burnt and seared into my brain. Whenever I was feeling down and I wanted to, like, give myself a nudge, go on, Richard, go on, do it, you fucking pussy, do it. This was the type of movie that would go on. If ever I was just on a fucking bender and I wanted to hold a mirror up to myself where I was, as I was pulling straight from the bottle at fucking 5 a.m. and the sun's coming up outside, I'll put this on to give me a nudge in the other direction. Richard, fucking stop, you fucking idiot. Look what you're turning into. This is how the people feel about you when you're interacting with them when you're like this. Get your act together. Equally, if I just want to watch a fucking really sad movie that for some reason it doesn't make me cry, it's something else. Like, I'll cry over Tom Cruise and his boys getting gunned down in the fucking Last Samurai. Like, you know what I mean? I'll Hacksaw Ridge.
I will tell you how he
no.
Love it.
Hacksaw. I watched fucking Hacksaw Ridge. I watched that like 2
That's
weeks
deep
ago,
cut.
bro. It fucking killed. Please, God, just let me get one more. You're killing me, man. You're fucking killing me with your big Adam's apple. So it's this doesn't make me cry, but it does make me feel sad. It does make me feel profoundly sad, but it's like that empty sadness. It's that end of the night sadness. Yeah, it nails it.
But
totally.
the thing is that you're not. I think what to your point about suicide earlier, what takes the edge off of this is that both of these people ultimately want this.
Yeah, agency is very important. I think this is why Ebert nails it. I mean, in a way, look, I think it's a bit glib and flippant to ever say, well, people who work in sex work have a choice. They might not. How they got there might be a confluence of circumstance beyond their control. But ultimately, in the moment to moment within that, there is the way it's presented here, at least, is she has some agency. Of course, some people don't. They are essentially sex slaves. It is awful.
Sure.
And we're not talking about
we're
that.
talking about this particular
Yeah, I don't want people to think
where she does have
I don't
agency.
want everyone to go
especially after her pimp is killed. She has significant agency at that point in time. Less protection, more agency.
So the I think the reason that it works and it's super important to the film is that choice. These people have selected this. They might not have selected what went before, but ultimately, we don't know. This is another thing that's really interesting about the film. We are dropped into Ben's life, then we are dropped into Elisabeth Sera's life, and we are seeing them as they are in this moment of their lives. There's no flashbacks. We don't need any of this. We don't need any of that to understand these characters. We can see the ways that they are idiosyncratic. We can see the ways that they are broken, and we can see the ways that they are in pain. And we can see what they do to reconcile their life choices, and we can see what they do to deal with the pain that they are in as a result of the lives that have happened to them. That's perfect. That's so nailed on for just who people are. When you're a bit bruised and a bit broken, you don't get all the breaks, and life's fucking shit in a way, like, because it is like that curve, man. Like you start out as formless, you become a person, you're a really fucked up shit version of that person that you might go on to become, but this is where you learn your life lessons, you formulate, you become the best distilled version of yourself. You can still be a piece of shit, by the way, but it's just, you are the refined, polished piece of shit article there. You get a little bit older and a little bit wiser, knock some of the rough edges off, but then you hit that point, this is why people have midlife crises, you start losing shit. You start having less time for relationships, less time to work on yourself. Things are harder, decisions are more complicated. Feels like there's less time, but you need to do more. You're looking at the end stage. You can see it's just over the horizon. It's terrifying you, but what am I going to do here? And then now all of a sudden I got this physical problem. I got a health problem. I got this. I got that. And then eventually it just gets to the end point where before you die, you are the sort of distillation, the diluted form, I should say, rather. You are the diluted form of everything you used to be 50 years hence, with probably far less tools to deal with the reality you're in, and maybe even not a support group or people around you, depending on the choices you've made and how you've chose to live your life. And there is this terrifying, grasping desperation to this as you're watching kind of Nick Cage's character stripped of more and more things, stripped of his life, stripped of his job, slowly stripped of his money. The way that the hotel becomes a motel, becomes seedier, then it's Elisabeth Shue's shoebox apartment, and as he becomes less coherent, as his cognitive factors start to leave him, this once brilliant erudite writer that wowed Hollywood to the point they'll pay him so much money to fuck off and not remind them of what he used to be, and here he is stammering and shaking and barely able to get a coherent sentence out, and there's no more booze in the fridge, which would be the only mechanism via which you could get right. That's powerful shit. That is an unbelievably profound thing to watch happen to anybody on a film. And the performances are just imbued with a realness and a desire to present these characters as accurately as they would be in real life. And I'm sure somebody watching this episode, people like this. You've seen it happen. You've probably had a loved one with addiction problems and you've watched them waste away to nothing. And this will leave you with a lot of thoughts and feelings about that, about how much of it was a choice and how much of it you need to respect and what you could have done and what should you have done. Yeah, this is one of those all-time movies that, like, I think it's just gonna leave you. It's gonna leave you with at the end when the titles are going and you're getting the Vegas music again. It's just gonna leave you with like a real quiet beat, just a moment to meditate and think about things. And not a lot of movies hit you that hard. This one will. This is a right and left hook. There is no happy endings at all in sight for anyone.
And And also, purely from a performance perspective, too, this informs what we saw from Nicolas Cage in Mandy as well, because we talked about, Richard, you talked about the signs of the alcoholism and that, and his desperation, drinking that bottle of vodka.
Devil knows his own.
Now, that movie, that movie happens 25 years later, basically, and you can still see how this experience from Nicolas Cage helps him perform in that film in a very realistic way, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, this it shouldn't be one of the movies I've watched a lot. As I said, I don't recommend that you sit here and watch this on repeat viewing. It's probably not good psychologically for you. I'll take this over 500 Days of fucking Summer, though, in terms of damage inflicted any day of the week. But
it turns out that you would actually turn into Nicolas Cage in this movie if you did 500 Days of 500 Days of Summer.
I wouldn't make 100, mate. I'd be out. I'd be making stuff. All you can do is not judge me. But I mean, like, I just think everything about this movie is so masterful. It's actually an anachronism. Not an anachronism. Yeah, it is an anachronism in a way. That's the right word for it. It feels like a 70s movie. The pacing and the scope and the way the story is just allowed to play out. Think about how when we cover 90s movies, think about how we're always covering movies that go big, movies that go hard, movies that are filled with spectacle. Even stuff like that kickstarts the new wave of cinema that comes out of the 90s. Even stuff like Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is a series of big, bombastic, memorable set pieces. Yeah, they're not action sequences apart from that car crash in the middle, but like they are, the syringe in the heart. Fuck, that was trippy. Fade to black next bit, the fucking samurai sword, bring out the gimp, all of that. Zed's dead, getting the honey. Be cool, all of this shit. It's big scenes.
Are you just gonna act out all of Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, why not? Why not? ESL could hire me to do their skits. But the point is, that is a movie that like has all these big moments, and it's like 94. It's a contemporary of this film. This is a very small, intimate movie. A very small, slow, intimate movie. It doesn't really have the big beats. It doesn't need to. This is like a character piece. I actually even like Ebert's framing of it being, if you think about it as Sera's story and Ben is just someone happening to her, then you're left with a bunch of unanswered questions about, will she revise where she is? What will she think? What will she do? How will she process Ben's death? You're not going to get any answers to them, but it's something interesting to think about. So I love this movie. I adore this movie. Like, put it at the top of any scale. It probably should. It's certainly a better Best Picture contender than fucking Braveheart and Babe. I mean, fuck me. So I think Mike Figgis was kind of robbed a little bit in this one. At least Nicolas Cage got Best Actor. Elisabeth Shue should have had Best Actor.
They didn't even get paid.
And yeah, didn't even get paid, which is, by the way, as I said, it's the ultimate final punchline to what this movie's about life and how tough it can be.